Hello, welcome to dinner. We're on 2 Samuel chapter 14. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, knew that the heart of the sovereign was towards Absalom. And Joab sent to Tekoa and brought from there a wise woman and said to her, "Please pretend to be a mourner and put on mourning garments, and do not anoint yourself with oil, but act like a woman who has been mourning a long time for the dead. Then you shall go to the sovereign and speak to him according to this word." And Joab put the words in her mouth. And when the woman of Tekoa, or that would actually be Tekovah, spoke to the sovereign, she fell on her face to the ground and did obeisance and said, "Save, O sovereign." And the sovereign said to her, "What is your trouble?" And she answered, "Truly I am a widow, my husband is dead. And your female servant had 2 sons, and the 2 fought with each other in the field, and there was no one to part them, but the one struck the other and killed him. And see, the entire clan has risen up against your female servant and said, 'Give him who struck his brother, so that we put him to death for the life of his brother, whom he killed and destroyed the heir also.' Thus they would extinguish my burning coal that is left, and leave to my husband neither name nor remnant on the earth." And the sovereign said to the woman, "Go to your house and let me give commands concerning you." And the woman of Tekoa said to the sovereign, "O master, O sovereign, let the crookedness be on me and on my father's house, and the sovereign and his throne be guiltless." And the sovereign said, "Whoever speaks to you, bring him to me, and let him no longer touch you." And she said, "Please let the sovereign remember Jehovah your Elohim, and the Redeemer of blood not destroy any more, lest they destroy my son." And he said, "As Jehovah lives, not one hair of your son shall fall to the ground." And the woman said, "Please let your female servant speak a word to my master and sovereign." And he said, "Speak." And the woman said, "And why have you reasoned like this against the people of Elohim? For in speaking this word, the sovereign is as one who is guilty, in that the sovereign does not bring his outcast one home again. And we shall certainly die and become like water spilled on the ground, which is not gathered up again. Yet Elohim does not take away a life, but shall devise ways so that his outcast ones are not cast out from him. And now I have come to speak this word to my master, the sovereign, because the people have made me afraid." And your female servant said, "Please let me speak to the sovereign." It could be that the sovereign does what his female servant asks. For the sovereign has listened to deliver his female servant from the hand of the man seeking to destroy me and my son, together from the inheritance of Elohim. Then your female servant said, "Please let the word of my master the sovereign be comforting. For my master the sovereign is as the messenger of Elohim, in discerning the good and the evil. And Jehovah your Elohim is with you." And the sovereign answered and said to the woman, "Please do not hide from me the matter that I am asking you." And the woman said, "Please let my master the sovereign speak." And the sovereign said, "Is the hand of Joab with you in all this?" And the woman answered and said, "As your being lives, my master the sovereign, no one turns to the right or to the left from all that my master the sovereign has spoken. For your servant Joab commanded me, and he put all these words in the mouth of your female servant. Your servant Joab has done this to change the appearance of the matter. But my master is wise, according to the wisdom of a messenger of Elohim, to know all that is in the earth." And the sovereign said to Joab, "See now, you shall do this matter, and go bring back the young man Absalom." And Joab fell to the ground on his face and did obeisance, and blessed the sovereign. And Joab said, Today your servant knows that I have found favor in your eyes, my master, O sovereign, in what the sovereign has done, the word of his servant. And Joab rose up and went to Geshur, and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. And the sovereign said, Let him return to his own house. Do not let him see my face. And Absalom went to his own house and did not see the sovereign's face. And in all Israel there was no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his handsomeness. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head there was no blemish in him. And when he cut the hair of his head, for it was at every year's end that he cut it, because it was heavy on him, when he cut it, he weighed the hair of his head, and 200 shekels by the sovereign's weight. And to Absalom were born 3 sons, and 1 daughter whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of beautiful appearance. And Absalom dwelt in Jerusalem 2 years, and he had not seen the sovereign's face. And Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the sovereign, but he would not come to him. And he sent him again the 2nd time, but he would not come. And he said to the servants, See, Joab's field is near mine, and he has barley there. And set in it on fire, and Absalom's servants set the field on fire. Then Joab rose and came to the house of Absalom and said to him, Why have your servants set my field on fire? And Absalom said to Joab, Look, I sent to you saying, Come here, so that I send you to the sovereign to say, Why have I come from Geshur? It was good for me while I was there, and now let me see the sovereign's face. And if there is any crookedness in me, then you shall put me to death. Joab then went to the sovereign and informed him, and he called for Absalom. And he came to the sovereign and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the sovereign. Then the sovereign kissed Absalom. And it came to be after this that Absalom prepared a chariot and horses for himself, and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom used to rise early and stand beside the way of the gate. And it came to be, whenever anyone who had a complaint came to the sovereign for a right ruling, that Absalom would call to him and say, What city are you from? And when he said, Your servant is from such and such a tribe of Israel, Absalom would say to him, Look, your matters are good and right, but you have nobody from the sovereign to hear you. And Absalom would say, Oh, that I were made judge in the land. And everyone who has any complaint or case would come to me, and I shall let right be done to him. And it came to be, whenever anyone came near him to bow down to him, that he would put out his hand and take hold of him and kiss him. And Absalom did this to all Israel who came to the sovereign for right ruling. And Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. And it came to be at the end of 40 years that Absalom said to the sovereign, Please let me go to Hebron and pay the vow which I vowed to Jehovah. For your servant vowed a vow while I was dwelt at Geshur in Aram, saying, If Jehovah indeed brings me back to Jerusalem, then I shall serve Jehovah. And the sovereign said to him, Go in peace. And he rose up and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, As soon as you hear the voice of the shofar, then you shall say, Absalom is sovereign in Hebron. And with Absalom went 200 men from Jerusalem, who were invited, and they went along unsuspectingly and did not know the matter at all. Absalom also sent for Ahithophel, the Gilonite, counselor of David, from his city, from Gilo, while he slaughtered slaughterings, and it came to be that the conspiracy became potent, for the people with Absalom kept increasing. Then a messenger came to David, saying, The hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. And David said to all his servants, who were with him at Jerusalem, Rise up and let us flee, for none of us shall escape from Absalom. Go in haste, lest he take us quickly and bring evil upon us, and strike the city with the edge of the sword. And the sovereign servant said to the sovereign, Look, your servant shall do according to all my master the sovereign chooses. And the sovereign went out, and all his household at his feet. But the sovereign left 10 women concubines to look after the house. So the sovereign went out, and all the people at his feet, and they stood still at the last house. And all his servants were passing on at his side. And all the Kerethites, and all the Pelethites, and all the Gittites, 600 men who had followed him from Gath, were passing on before the sovereign. And the sovereign said to Ittai the Gittite, Why do you go, you also with us? Turn back and remain with the sovereign, for you are a foreigner and also an exile from your own place. You came yesterday, and should I today make you wander up and go with us, and down with us, when I am going wherever I am going? Return and take your brothers back, loving commitment and truth to be with you. And Ittai answered the sovereign and said, As Jehovah lives, and as my master the sovereign lives, in whatever place my master the sovereign is, whether in death or life, let your servant also be there. Therefore David said to Ittai, Go and pass over. And Ittai the Gittite and all his men and all the little ones who were with him passed over. And all the land was weeping with a loud voice, and all the people were passing over. And the sovereign himself was passing over the Wadi Kidron, and all the people were passing over toward the way of the wilderness. And see, Sadok also came, and all the Levites with him, bearing the ark of the covenant of Elohim. And they set down the ark of Elohim, and Abiathar went up until all the people completed passing over from the city. And the sovereign said to Sadok, Take the ark of Elohim back to the city. If I find favor in the eyes of Jehovah, then he shall bring me back and show me both it and his dwelling. And if he says thus, I have not delighted in you, here I am, let him do to me as seems good in his eyes. And the sovereign said to Sadok the priest, Are you not a seer? Return to the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz your son, and Jehonathan son of Abiathar. See, I am waiting in the desert plains of the wilderness until word comes from you to inform me. And Sadok and Abiathar took the ark of Elohim back to Jerusalem, and they remained there. And David went up by the ascent of the Mount of Olives, and wept as he went up. And he had his head covered, and went barefoot, and all the people who were with him covered their heads, and went up weeping as they went. And David was informed, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Jehovah, I pray you make the counsel of Ahithophel foolish. And it came to be that David came to the summit where he bowed himself before Elohim, and saw Hushai the Archite coming to meet him with his robe torn and dust on his head. And David said to him, If you pass on with me, then you shall become a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I am your servant, O sovereign, once servant of your father, but now I am your servant, then you shall nullify the counsel of Ahithophel for me. And are not Sadok and Abiathar the priest with you there? And it shall be that every matter you hear from the sovereign's house you should report to Sadok and Abiathar the priests. See, there is with them are their 2 sons, Ahimaaz and Sadok's son, and Jehonathan Abiathar's son. And by them you shall send me every matter you hear. And Hushai David's friend, went into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem. And David had passed on a little from the summit and saw Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, who met him with a couple of saddled donkeys, and on them 200 loaves, and 100 cakes of raisin, and 100 summer fruits, and a skin of wine. And the sovereign said to Ziba, "Why do you have these?" And Ziba said, "The donkeys are for the sovereign's household to ride on, and the bread and summer fruit for the young men to eat, and the wine for the wearied to drink in the wilderness." And the sovereign said, "And where is this son of your master?" And Ziba said to the sovereign, "See, he remains in Jerusalem, for he said, 'Today the house of Israel is going to return the reign of my father to me.'" And the sovereign said to Ziba, "See, all that belongs to Mephibosheth is yours." And Ziba said, "I have bowed myself. Let me find favor in your eyes, my master, O sovereign." And when sovereign David came to Bahurim, he saw a man from the clan of the house of Shaul, whose name was Shimei, son of Gera, coming from there. He came out cursing as he came, and he pelted with stones David and all the servants of sovereign David, and all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And this is what Shimei said as he cursed, get out, O man of blood, and man of Belial. Jehovah has brought upon you all the blood of the house of Shaul in those places you have reigned. And Jehovah has given the reign into the hand of Absalom your son. And see, are in your own evil, for you are a man of blood." And Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the sovereign, "Why should this dead dog curse my master the sovereign? Please let me pass over and take off his head." And the sovereign said, "What have I to do with you, you son of Zeruiah? For let him curse, even because Jehovah has said to him, 'Curse David.' And who should say, 'Why did you do that?'" And David said to Abishai and all his servants, "See how my son, who came from my own body, seeks my life, and how much more this Benjamite. Leave him alone and let him curse, for Jehovah has spoken to him. If so be Jehovah does look on my affliction, and Jehovah shall return good to me for his cursing today." And as David and his men went in the way, Shimei walked alongside him on the hillside, and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him, and kicked up dust. And the sovereign and all the people who were with him became weary, and they refreshed themselves there. And Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel was with him. And it came to be, when Hushai the Archite, the friend of David, had come to Absalom, the Hushai said to Absalom, "Let the sovereign live, let the sovereign live." And Absalom said to Hushai, "Is this your loving commitment to your friend? Why did you not go with your friend?" And Hushai said to Absalom, "No, I am for the one whom Jehovah and this people and all the men of Israel have chosen, and with him I remain. And besides, whom should I serve? Should it not be before his son? As I have served before your father, so I am before you." And Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give your advice, what should we do?" And Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go in your father's concubines, when he has left to look after the house. And all Israel shall hear that you have made yourself a stench to your father, and the hands of all who are with you shall be strong." And they pitched a tent for Absalom on the top of the house. And Absalom went into his father's concubines before the eyes of all Israel. And now the advice Ahithophel gave in those days was as if one had inquired at the word of Elohim. So was the advice of Ahithophel both to David and to Absalom.